Hello everyone, it's Jamie and welcome back to my channel and welcome to another cross-stitching update video. In this video I have some cross-stitch progress plus I have a finish, which I am excited about. I have a tiny little bit of knitting that I will talk about and then also some more book talk. So I will just jump right in with the cross-stitch and I'm going to start with the finish because I was so excited when I finished this chart, and I finished it like 3 days after my last video, and I think my last video was like 2 weeks ago, more than 2 weeks ago, I don't even know. I do not know time anymore, but after my last video, I decided I was only going to focus on one piece until it was finished, and that piece was Tonight We Ride, which is by Autumn Lane Stitchery. I will insert somewhere where it was the last time you saw it, and I will show you it now because, like I said, I'm really excited to have this finally finished. So first I'll show you the section that I was working on, which I was working on this section in the bottom here. I needed to finish the black for this house. I needed to finish some of the bottom, like it was all the bottom corner left. The witch had been finished, I think at the beginning of the year or at the end of last year. I don't remember which. And so I got all that finished, and then there was also a tiny amount of back stitching that needed to be done after I did all the cross stitch. So there was back stitching in the tree, a little bit of back stitching in some of the windows, and then on the other side there was some back stitching. So there was what I worked on, and then now I will show the full piece, which, like I said, super excited to have this finished and have this goal checked off for the year. This was stitched on a piece of fabric that is called This Is Halloween from Witch's Garden Crafts. I think it was a 16 count, I am pretty sure. And then I used all the called for colors. I started this in September of, I think, last year. Yeah, it was last year. I went to the Stitch and Pitch, which is a thing. Okay, some baseball teams do a thing called Stitch and Pitch where they have a certain game where you can buy a ticket that is for an event for stitchers. And so, the nearest baseball team to me is the Mariners. I'm in Washington State, and they always do that event. I think they are doing it again in August of this year, but I don't think I'm going to it this year just because there's other things that are happening like around the same time. So I won't be going to Stitch and Pitch this year, but I started this last year when I went to Stitch and Pitch, which was very fun. I don't remember exactly what day it was, but if I looked back, I could probably figure it out. But yeah, so I started in September of last year. And now it's finished in less than a year, which I love the fact that small pieces can be finished in less than a year because I have so many big pieces that just take forever. So this is done. I do plan on trying to frame it sometime in the next month or two so that I can have it hanging up for Halloween of this year, which that was my goal, is to have it finished and ready for displaying this year for Halloween, because I don't think I have... Before this year, I did not have any finished Halloween cross-stitch pieces. This year I finished the Tonight We Ride, but I also finished Festive Frosted Pumpkin Cottage earlier this year. So now I have two. I have two Halloween things for this year, which was what I was trying to do, is because I do have quite a bit of Christmas things finished, which I should, later in the year, I will show all my Christmas finishes because I love Christmas, and so that is like the one thing that I have quite a bit of is Christmas finishes. And so I knew I needed to get some like Halloween, and I also need to do some other holidays. Like I don't think I have anything really that's like summer specific yet, so I need to eventually move on to summer, but I have quite a few other Halloween charts that I would like to start later in the year, and so there's just a lot of things I want to stitch, but I'm trying not to start a lot of stuff right now. So the next piece I will talk about is a piece that is kind of my next piece that I would like to get finished. That is Kita. Kita is artwork from Hannah Alexander and charted by Pinky the Pink from makeitpink.net, and I only did like 300 stitches on it since my last video, so it didn't get a ton of progress, but I'll show it anyways. And so here is Kita right now. I would like it to be finished by, when is it? The end of September, before the next Zelda game comes out, so that I can start a Zelda themed chart for that, but I don't know if I'm going to make it or not. It really depends on how much stitching I can get in on it in the next month, in August, and then in September. Once my kids go back to school, I should have a ton more stitching time, but you know, it's still summer until the very end of August here is when they go back to school, so there is quite a while that they will be home still. I am stitching this on a 28 count fabric, 2/2 full cross, and I think there's still like 6,000 stitches left. So there's still quite a bit to do of just the cross stitching, plus then there is still back stitching and beads. So she's got a ways to go. I will be able to do more on her now that Tonight We Ride is finished, because in July I think I did at least 2, possibly 3,000 stitches on just Tonight We Ride to get it finished. So those stitches in August can then move over to Kita, hopefully. And then I don't know what to show next. The next piece that I will show is my Game of Thrones themed piece that I stitch on Sundays, because on Sundays is the day that House of the Dragons is on TV, and I love House of the Dragons, I love Game of Thrones, and the piece that I've been working on the last few weeks is my Tilton Crafts Game of Thrones piece, so I'll insert the artwork here somewhere, and I do have another piece that I started this year, but I'm trying to work more on my Tilton Crafts piece because it's number 1, older, number 2, I would like to get it to 10% this year, and right now it's only at like 8.6%, and it takes 2,300 stitches to get a percent increase. So yeah, I still have to do another few thousand stitches to get it to 10%, but here is where it is. And I also don't really want to leave this piece where it is because I started working on Varys's face, so this guy here, and I can't leave his face like that. Like, I've worked on it 3 days since my last video because there has been 3 episodes, and every time I'd work on his face, it was just like, it looked so bad when it was like partway finished. Like, faces look really creepy. Like, at one point I had only worked on like this half of his face, and so he was just like kind of looking at me weird, and then I didn't have like the bottom half the last Sunday, and so yeah, I'm just trying to get his face finished because I don't like it when faces are partially finished. Kind of like Daenerys down here, she looks creepy too, so I need to work on his face and then her face. But this is being stitched on a 28 count fabric, 2/1 half cross. And so yeah, I'm just going to try and get it to 10% this year. So I'm going to keep working on it on Sundays for House of the Dragons. And then this piece has not been called yet for WIP-go. So when it does get picked for WIP-go, it will get another 1,000 stitches then. So yeah, and it didn't get called for August WIP-go because August numbers were called. And in August, I am going to be working on 2 full coverage girls. So there is the chart Mayara Salome, which is by Nini Thomas, I think. And then there's also the chart, what was it, Snow Cherry, which is by Maxine Gadd. I can insert the artwork for those there. So August is going to be like a very lovely Lady August, apparently, for me, for full coverage. And then also the other chart that I can go to next, which is another Maxine Gadd, because I really love Maxine Gadd artwork. The thing is it's mostly all ladies' faces, just like lady full on. And so I have quite a few of them, but I also feel like I need more variety than just stitching a bunch of ladies who are just staring at me. Like, I would just have a house full of people staring at me from a wall if I stitched all the Maxine Gadd charts I have right now. But that brings me to Autumn Harmony, which I am trying to do 60,000 stitches on this chart this year. And so every month I'm trying to do, I think, 5,000 stitches. And so for July, I still need to do another like 1,000 stitches to get to my goal. So I really need to get stitching on this. So here is where it is right now. I moved my hoop so that I can stitch like in this full area, so I can bring this part up to the top, because I stitched this top part I think either at the end of last year or beginning of this year, I don't remember. And then now I have been trying to bring this side here up to the top and just filling it in, and it takes a long time because there is quite a bit of confetti. There's a lot of color changes, so like right in here there was like a lot of grays and blues, and then it switched to where there's like this little pocket of red, and then all these greens and like tans and stuff that are in here. So yeah, there's just a ton of color changes, but I am loving the way that it comes out. So like, look at that. And I do love the colors for this, like how there's like all these like oranges and reds. It's beautiful, I love it. And this is on an 18 count, 2/1 full cross. And then the other piece that I worked on just yesterday, because I realized that I hadn't worked on one of my WIP-go pieces yet for July, and it was one that I needed to substitute a chart in. So earlier in the year I had quit a chart which was Sailor Moon, which is by Tilton Crafts. I just didn't want to stitch it anymore because it was like 500,000 stitches, and I knew I would not get it finished because I had started it in like 2019 and I had only had like this little chunk done, so I was like, it's not gonna get finished, so I was moving on. What I decided to do is, because I store all of my projects in bags like this, and they all have a number on them, and then I have a list. So I have all of my things listed in number order. I think it's like 1 through 36 or something, because I'm at like 36 WIPs now, I think. And so each chart is assigned to a bag with a number, and that is how I find all of my WIPs, is I can look at the list and be like, oh, Game of Thrones, I think that's what this bag is. Game of Thrones is number 4, it will be on the shelf in numerical order, so I can find everything easy. Sailor Moon was in project bag number 6. When I had quit working on it, I put a different project into that bag because I had started some new things earlier in the year, and they hadn't been put into a bag yet. I had put Dragon Hall, which is by Long Dog Sampler, in that bag, so I was like, I'll just work on Dragon Hall because it's in the same project bag, so that just made sense to me. I had thought about doing a new start, but I also don't want to start things right now because I'm like behind on some of my goals because I haven't worked on Little Gamer in like 2 months. I have not worked on the Hade Stitch Along in 2 months. I have not met my goal yet for Kita for July. So yeah, I was like, I'm not starting new things when I have not met my goals for a while. So I worked on Dragon Hall. So here's my progress on Dragon Hall. I think I did 500 stitches. This is on a 20 count fabric from the sewingshop.ca, and the fabric is iron ore, and I love this fabric so much. So I'm gonna hold it back so you can see the bottom. The bottom of this fabric is amazing, and then the top, so it goes from like this light at the top, and then it has these drips, and then it's dark at the bottom, and I love this. So there's Dragon Hall. I also think that this is like appropriate for like House of the Dragon season because, you know, you have dragons and all that going on, so it's dragon season, and I love this. I did switch the colors though, so the chart comes with a list of colors that are DMC. It also gives a list of a variegated floss. I think it's like Classic Colorworks or something. I don't stitch very often with like fancy flosses, so I don't know the brands very well. So it does come with a conversion for fancy floss. I was looking through the colors of the fancy floss and I realized that when you stitch it with the fancy floss, the colors were different. So the DMC was what the mock-up used, but then the fancy floss had more of like pinks and stuff in it, and I was like, I love the idea of having pinks in it. And so I ended up getting out my anchor floss because I have a whole bunch of anchor floss that I never use because it was on clearance from Michaels, but almost none of my charts actually use anchor floss normally. So I just pulled out a bunch of anchor floss, and this is what I have going on. There's a lot more of like pinks and oranges and stuff that were not normally in there. I'm also using some leftover silks that I have. So I have a dark purple silk that I'm using. I also have a creamy silk that I'm using in the castle part, but I haven't done very much of that. And so yeah, I love this chart though. And I still have to do 500 stitches to meet my WIP-go goal because my WIP-go goal is 1,000 stitches in each project. So there was that. That was all my cross stitch, which it wasn't a ton, but I've also been doing some reading, so I'll talk about reading next. So the first book I will talk about is my sister recommended a book that was called Educated by Tara Westover, and I listened to that one, so I got the audiobook, and it is about a girl who grew up in a family that was super religious. They did not trust the government, and so they lived like in Idaho in the mountains, and she did not go to school. She was homeschooled, which she was not really homeschooled. And yeah, it's just about like her life, all the things she went through. There was some abuse that happened with her siblings and just a lot of things that happened. And it was really interesting to see how some people grow up and also just like how some people think the things that they do, because everyone has different upbringings, and that is like a very different upbringing than what is typical in a lot of places. Like they didn't go to the doctor, they didn't trust doctors, and there was just a lot of stuff. She grows up and she decides she wants to go to school and go to college, and then she starts learning about all these things that she didn't know about. And yeah, it's a very good book. I listened to it like in a couple days because I could not stop listening to it once I started. And so there was that. The next book is one that I had talked about previously, The Women by Kristen Hannah. My thoughts on this book are so conflicted because, okay, I made a video like a week ago and I didn't post it. And I was only like halfway through the book when I made that video. And I think I was like, oh, you know, I like it, blah, blah, blah. I was only like in the first couple hundred pages of this book. I don't think I liked this book. I like the first half of the book. I don't like the second half. And so the book is about a girl who goes off to the Vietnam War as a army nurse. And there's a lot of stuff that happens there of like, first of all, there's a lot of graphic injuries that are described. So if you don't like graphic like injuries being described, this is not going to be something you're going to like. But yeah, so the first part, she goes to war. She's a nurse. She sees a lot of things. She experiences a lot of things. There's like some little love interest things that go on. I don't want to give all the details about it. And then she ends up going home. I liked the book up until she went home. They should have just ended it when she went home. And then just like everything falls apart, which I guess that's like part of the story is, you know, how people, like how veterans were after coming back from war. But then there's so much stuff with the love interest that it just made me so mad. I was like, you did not have to write it this way. You did not have to write the story this way and break my heart. Like, I think I'm too used to like the fairy dragony, like A Court of Thorn and Roses books and things like that, and like Fourth Wing, where like bad things happen, but they almost always turn out well for the main character in those books. You know, they almost always end up with the person they love and it's just happy ending, and this was not it. So yeah, I read this book. It was good enough to finish pretty quickly. Like last night I stayed up until like 2 in the morning finishing it because I wanted to know how it ended. But there was just a lot of parts where I was so mad. Especially like one of the guys makes me so mad in this book. If you read this book, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, but one of the guys lies. Anyways, and then the next book that I haven't read it yet, but I need to find where I put my yarn. It's right here. So the next book that I got is one because it matches my yarn. So it's called The Charm Offensive. And yeah, I really just got it because my yarn is from Geektastic Fibers, and they dye their yarn to match different things. And so this one was called Charm Offensive, and that's the name of this book. And you can see the colors match the cover. And so I haven't read it yet because it just came in a couple days ago, but I got it to match my yarn, so I'll talk about knitting now. So it's Sock Week, which is from Nitty Natty on YouTube and Instagram and probably just everywhere, I don't know. And I don't actually like officially participate, like I'm not posting anything on Instagram or anything like with the hashtag because like I always forget to. But I am just like participating myself, like, oh, we are making a sock this week. I think it started the 21st. And this is where I am. So I'm using this yarn from Geektastic Fibers. It's a self-striping yarn in the colorway Charm Offensive. It also, I don't know if you can tell, it has stellina, so it's got sparkles in it, and so I love that. And here's where I am on my sock. So I've been working on it for, I think, 3-ish days. There's a hair. So I did my ribbing, and now I'm working on the leg. I am at the part where I can do the heel flap, but I just need to get my DPNs out for that, so that's why I stopped. Is whenever I get to a part in a pattern where I have to like get out something, for some reason it always takes me a while to do it, even though it's easy. The DPNs are literally right over there, but for some reason I always have to pause, and like it takes me a little while to actually just do it. I don't know why. I love self-striping yarn. It is very fun. I am loving using it because I'm also using a self-striping yarn for my daughter's leg warmers, which I haven't really worked on. So I need to finish my sock first, and then I'll probably go back to the leg warmers. But then I also need to make myself another sock. So we'll see what happens. But that is all that I have for this video, I think. So I will see you all in my next video, which hopefully will be in another week or 2. There's only like a month more of summer, and then I can hopefully get back to regularly stitching and regularly posting. But the biggest thing is that I haven't been stitching a lot compared to what I normally do. So there's not usually like a ton to show in a weekly video. But yeah, so I will see you all in my next video. Thank you everyone for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Bye!